like to start out my remarks today by congratulating the Torch Award honorees that are going to be recognized today. Each of these organizations has distinguished itself with its ethical treatment of customers, which is truly admirable in my opinion. I also want to acknowledge and thank our sponsors today. Without their contributions, of course, we would not be enjoying such a marvelous event. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Oakland University, one of our jewels of higher education here in Michigan, and a really outstanding organization in and of itself. So I'm going to talk to you today about business growth and the importance of behaving ethically. So I'll start off by suggesting to you, with all due respect, that there is no growth without ethical behavior. You see, we live in a highly regulated business environment. I don't think I don't think it's any news to the business people in this audience. And so I think about all of the things that we do in our business that require us to have some form of reputation, quality reputation. So for example, think about it this way. We go into a community, we need site plan approval. What does that mean? That means that I'm going to have politicians and folks from planning commissions question me about how we behave as corporate citizens. When we go to secure a liquor license, I've got regulators looking at us going, how do you perform relative to your responsibilities with that adult beverage? And then I just think of the business licensing that we're subject to. Without a track record of behaving ethically, we would be constrained and precluded from growing. So think about this part of it as well. In a very capital-intensive business, as Alicia pointed out, we raised a lot of money, both debt and equity. I used to be a banker, my first job out of college. And those of you that have served in banking might know that there are 3 or 4 C's of credit. The first and foremost of which is character. So without character, you don't get a commercial loan. So we have to demonstrate character just simply to have the privilege of borrowing money from a bank. I remember years ago working as an analyst at America Bank, and we had a prospective borrower who had gone to prison for Medicare fraud. And while he repaid his debt to society, the decision was made not to bankroll those card stores. He was got out of the prescription drug business at that point in time. He lost his license. But there was no way he was going to be financed by our particular institution at that point in time, because he had a track record where he demonstrated that he wasn't of character. And so I think about that not only in the context of needing that capital from bankers, but also from our investors. And the way in which we've treated our investors is really the underpinning as to why we have a business today, among other reasons. But it's a very, very important reason. I'm most proud of the fact that my original angel investors, and this goes back to 1996, are still investors with us today, people who have placed their trust in us. They have stood by us and committed their capital to each and every theater we've done in the history of our business. And so I'm just so delighted that I have these wonderful investors, and I'm going to say in my most recent policy trailer, that without their contributions, without their support, we would have nothing. So Emagine is also known as a business that doesn't simply take from society, but gives back. And I genuinely believe that that is a critically important characteristic in business. It's good, it's candidly just good business. Because when your guests, your customers know that you're not just taking from the society, but you're also giving back, that you're contributing something to those who are less fortunate, then I think folks feel better about doing business with you. And so I'll give you a small example. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. And so Emagine will be offering free movies to veterans, to public safety officials, and we'll be showing our gratitude, our thanks to those folks who sacrificed for our freedom. Why? We're gonna pay royalties on all those tickets, I promise you. But at the end of the day, showing gratitude, expressing our thanks, and being able to give back to the society, to the communities that have been so kind to us, I think is really a good business prospect, good business principle, excuse me. So we would indeed be constrained without having a good reputation. We've actually grown during the pandemic. Now my bankers think I'm out of my mind. I'm sure they're wrong. But back in September 30th of last year, when we had absolutely no revenue coming in, we signed a lease to do 4 new theaters. Now, I'm a believer in our industry. I think folks are coming back. We have some empirical evidence of that at this point in time, I'm pleased to tell you. But I wanted to tell you a short anecdotal story about how that came to pass. We have a competitor that actually declared bankruptcy before the start of the pandemic. And that competitor had a master lease with this large real estate investment trust. So essentially the real estate investment trust, their job is to clip coupons and let folks like us operate in their real estate. And so I have a good friend and a licensee who operates Emagine theaters in Minnesota. And John said, look, Paul, Spirit, which is the name of the real estate investment trust, would like to put a high quality operator in their buildings. We're a little stretched right now, but he said, why don't you talk to them? Lo and behold, we put this transaction together with Spirit, and that's why we're going to be expanding into neighboring states. One of the story really is this. John's got a great rapport with this large real estate company. John has done right by them. Because I have the privilege of working with John, his goodwill is rubbed off on me, and lo and behold, we're going to be growing our business because of it. So when you go back to the thematic element, business growth and the importance of behaving ethically, without that goodwill, without that demonstrated track record of abiding by sanctity of the contract, by serving guests and really optimizing the value of that proposition, we have nothing. And again, I want to talk to you about my investors. If I hadn't taken care of my investors over these many years, capital would not be available to us. I've long believed that it's more important that my investors do well than I do. In fact, the truth is that I only do well because of their capital. And so I've been very, very fortunate to have a small group of folks that have stood by our side, opened their checkbooks. And in fact, you know, you want to talk about perhaps one of the most gratifying experiences of my career. It was earlier this year. And going through a period of roughly zero income with plenty of fixed costs, our cash was running on empty. Our banker said, you know, you've never missed a payment, but it's getting a little tight. What do you say you and your investors throw in some more money? Now, on the one hand, it was a stake in my heart. It was a stake in my heart because after almost 25 years of doing business, I had never gone to my investors and said, I have a problem. Now I'm going to make it your problem. They knew that. Not only did they provide the capital necessary to satisfy our banks, but they also provided the additional capital for us to open the new theaters that I just shared with you. So again, growth is predicated on behaving ethically and answering the interests of others ahead of your own. The The other thing I'll tell you that I think is really an important characteristic of business is empathy. And I'm prone to say that when you put the interests of others ahead of your own, both parties will inevitably be successful. I actually believe that the most important characteristic to be a great Emagine teammate is to care. You have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of our guest and think about how you would want to be treated. You can't do that. I'm going to let you succeed elsewhere. Because again, if we can't exude hospitality, and that's what we're in the hospitality business. If we can't exude hospitality to you when you're a visitor in our home, then I don't think we earn our stripes. And what we abide by today is now called the platinum rule. It used to be the golden rule. Well, now it's the platinum rule, and rightly so, because we have to think, again, how do you want to be treated? And it's our obligation to do that. Of course, our goal is to cultivate raving fans as guests. Why?
Trying to let y'all enjoy the program. They want us to keep bothering y'all. They try like the bang on the dishes. That's why we not out on the
Word of
floor.
mouth.
You are.
And when you come to one of our theaters and you have a great experience, and you tell your friends, your family, your neighbors,
Excuse me, guys. Sorry. Let
that
me get this out,
helps
y'all.
us immensely.
Can I get? Oh,
So again, if you go back to the thought of how you grow your business, you grow your business by serving your current guests well, and lo and behold, they will reward you with their accolades, with their support, with the fine work that you've done well, and they'll help you grow your business organically. That applies both to our guests and our teammates. So as you would imagine, we were faced with some challenging decisions last year. We have about 40 of our teammates that are covered under our health plan at Emagine. These are, folks that have families, children. And we were looking at a circumstance where we were closed. We've done all the cleaning we could do, we've done the painting, we did everything we could do with the resources we had. And so we had to furlough these folks. I didn't want these fine people to be put in a position where they would have to decide whether to buy food for their family or pay for their corporate health insurance. So we made the decision to continue to pay 100% of the health insurance for our teammates who are covered in our plan, with no contribution on their part whatsoever while they were furloughed. It's gracious of you to applaud, and I thank you for your support. But if you go back to the theory that we have to take care of our guests, then I have to take care of my teammates. I have to show my teammates that when the going gets tough, I care about you. And there's a pretty happy result from this. Many folks are struggling to find personnel these days. Virtually all of our teammates have come back to work at Emagine. They're grateful that we thought about them, we cared about them. And so I think it's critically important that we have to demonstrate that we care about our teammates in order for them to care for our guests. So again, there are tangible benefits from this that I can point to today. We've just reviewing the information from our publicly traded peers, and it turns out that our patron count compared to 2019 is running at a much faster pace than that of our publicly traded competitors. I'd like to believe it's because folks that have yearned for that experience. They're ready to go back to life as we knew it. But we're not suffering to the degree that our competitors are in finding teammates. We're not suffering in finding guests who are remembering what a great experience it was, and they're back to support us once again. So in conclusion, I would simply tell you that I think ethical behavior is an imperative. I don't think we have a choice if we want to succeed, if we want to prosper. And I would also tell you that treating your guests, your customers, in an ethical fashion, treating them like they are truly precious, is the underpinning of success. Thank you so much